Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Ragz Show. Tonight we have a special guest, Joe Marsh from PA Wales. If you want to donate to the channel, the links are in the description to this video. Buy me a coffee and PayPal. Every little bit helps, you know. But without further ado, Joe Marsh.
How's it going, guys?
Not too bad at all. Yourself, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes. I want to get this out of the road, and then I can get you to explain about it. Now, Joe had passed me this on from, what did you say? I got 8,000 views in the first day.
Well, it went up yesterday, and between PA Wales page and Mark's page, it's had over 8,000 views. Like,
right. I'm going to play it here for the audience. So.
This is the Holiday Inn at Tonguinlice in Cardiff. Now, the place is full of asylum seekers. Well, I say asylum seekers, they're not. Most of them are from Pakistan and Albania. There are no wars in those countries. These people are not refugees, they're tourists. Now, a demonstration has been called on October the 15th by various groups. It's not a PA event, but we'll be supporting it. So, October the 15th, 1 p.m, Holiday Inn, Junction 32 on the M4, Tonguinlice.
Nice one, Joe. Sort of a bit hard hitting an impact, you know.
well, we had to do the video around the side because what's happened is a few different people and a few different groups have gone there filming and had arguments with the security. Now, this hotel, there's 5 hotels in Cardiff that's full of them, right? But this one is mostly Albanians in there, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're a different ball game because there was only like 5 of us went there, and it felt really like different from all the others because I've been to loads of hotels, right? Like there was about 30 of them hanging around there, and when they first spotted us, they basically ran off, and then they came out in cars and they were patrolling around. Like there was these dodgy Albanian looking guys driving around the hotel in cars. They look like gangsters, like, you know. And like we really had the feeling that, you know, we might get jumped. You know? The thing is, if we get jumped by them, when the police turn up, they're not arresting them, they're arresting us.
Yeah.
You know, because we're the evil far right, you know. So we had to go round to the side of the hotel and do it. And it felt really dodgy, like, you know. And like them Albanians, that hotel, we've been told, is mostly full of Pakistanis and Albanians, right?
Yeah.
Now, neither of them are running away from a war, right? What the hell are they doing here? You know? Yeah. And it's like I said, there's 5 hotels, right? There's Holiday Inn at Cardiff Airport, the Holiday Inn there, Tonguinlice. There's the Hilton in Cardiff City Centre. There's the Novotel. And there's the Copthorne. Now, the Copthorne is the kind of hotel you get married in. They've got a private lake around the back. They got saunas, you know, jacuzzis, swimming pools, everything in there. Yeah, and they like in the one hotel, we've been told there's like 110 rooms, and often there's only 50 rooms occupied. But the Home Office is paying for all those rooms. And the room rate is £99 a night, right? It's probably more in the Copthorne and the Hilton, right? But like £99 a night, they're paying for empty rooms. And often there's 60 empty rooms there. So that's £6,000 a day for empty rooms, you know? So like, if people think it's ridiculous that we're paying for these people to live in luxury hotels, right? We're paying for the rooms even when there's nobody in them.
Yes.
Because the Home Office say they want the rooms available at all times because, like, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning, they might need 20 rooms. You know what I mean? because they've bust a load of them down from Dover. So they pay for those rooms all the time. And what they're doing is, like in this one here, where the video is about, they've sacked the catering staff, and they bring in the halal cooks, right?
Yeah.
So the local people lose their jobs.
Which
There's a lot.
Halal slaughter and kosher slaughter was made illegal in England by the government last year or the year before. Yet they're still doing it.
Yeah, well, they're never going to stop them, are they? You know? But like, the thing is the local people are fuming about this hotel in particular, because that's a little village north of Cardiff, and it's I think there's like 1,900 people living there, and it's quite a smart little old-fashioned place. And all of a sudden, they've got all these Albanians landed on them.
Yeah,
you know, and they're fuming, and like they used to have swimming lessons in there, and all the kids have been told they can't have those swimming lessons in that hotel anymore. And the place looks like a refugee camp, honestly. Like, I took a photo yesterday. There was like about 10 of them there when I took that photo. That was on the way back, right? When we walked past it originally, there was about 30 of them all stood around, you know? And they're nearly all men. There's a couple of kids there, but they're nearly all fellas, like, you know?
They're all sort of fighting age men. But,
yeah.
I have a video to show on that. I can't make the guy's name, but he makes a real good point about it. If you want me to play it now, you can give me.
Yeah, just play it now if you want.
Where are we at here?
Well, good afternoon, people of England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. I hope you're all well. So, just a quick video, just to let people know, and I've titled this video Warning, Warning, Warning. Now, I don't know if people know this, so I'm going to put it out there. And I've been saying this for the last 2 years. So when the shit hits the fan, right, logically speaking, and we go into civil unrest, because that's where they're pushing us, they're wanting civil unrest, do you honestly think that they're going to bring our own army out to put us in check? No, they're not, because they're getting affected as well. If you didn't know, I'm going to tell you straight now, yeah? And as many people need to know this as possible. Most of the hotels in the United Kingdom have got contracts with the government, where they have hired the hotels off them for the foreseeable. And we're talking millions and millions of pounds worth of contracts. So of course the hotels have shut down. Why have they shut down? Why have they offered them these contracts? Because they are housing NATO soldiers. Let me just repeat that. The government has got contracts with most of the hotel chains throughout the United Kingdom, England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and the housing United Nations soldiers. And what nation soldiers? And what they're saying is they're immigrants. Now, I implore you to go have a look at your local hotel and see what is going on. You will notice that there is a lot of young men, not families, not immigrants, and they're saying that these people are immigrants, but these people are young men in the early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s. These are United Nations soldiers that are ready for when we have civil unrest to be brought out onto the streets. You need to let as many people know this information and get people to go around and have a look for themselves, and you'll see with your own eyes, if you do apply a bit of due diligence, what is going on. These United Nations soldiers are there ready for civil unrest in this country. Again, our own soldiers are not going to go up against us, so they've brought in United Nations soldiers. So I've been saying this for a long time. Why are the hotels full of all these young men? Yeah, and I know somebody that was seeing one of them, and now he's over in Ireland and they're shipping him about all over the place and moving him about all over the place. And he even said to her, yeah, she said that, he said to me, Jason, he said, you don't understand what's coming, you don't understand what's happening, you don't understand what we are here for. So he kind of alluded, but he's signed documentation, like all of them, so they're not allowed to talk about, under the National Security Secrecy Act, about why they are here. But I can assure you of this, majority of the hotels in this country are fucking hell. See, they're even sending wasps in to attack me, bastards. Yeah, most of the hotels in the United Kingdom are housing United nation soldiers. Why? Because we are due civil unrest, and they know that they're pushing us into civil unrest, because they're pushing us into civil unrest. So don't say you haven't been warned. You need to let as many people know, yeah, and you need to warn people that this shit, very shortly, especially at the beginning of next year, which I keep warning you all, we're going to have massive food shortages. Why do I know that? Because they've been telling us all year about lack of crops, lack of food, global warming, installations being burnt down. So just in case you don't know, the food that we are eating this year is from last year's surplus. So next year there's going to be massive amounts of food shortages, and then we're going to hit civil unrest. And this is by design. This is what they are wanting. They are wanting civil unrest so they can say, look, civil disobedience, new laws, break down the old to bring in the new. This is the new world order, people. Whether you want to stick your head in the fucking sand or up your ass and deny the facts what it is, it's happening. Can you not see what's going on around you? Everything is being broken down. The World Economic Forum are trying to fix everything. No, the World Economic Forum are responsible for trying to destroy our democracy. Our world that we have been brought up in, that we have been living in since we were born, is about to be destroyed. And the new Orwellian Fourth Industrial Revolution, which we're going through at the moment, that's what all this technology is that they're putting up all over the place, is about to take over. And they want to hybrid us into computers. And it's as simple as that. This, with the NATO soldiers, is just a small step of what people are, or should I say a small step towards the road and the journey where they're wanting to take humanity, or mankind. I don't like the word humans, because humans, monster. But they're trying to take mankind. So just to reiterate before I go, that all these young men that are housed up in hotels, that the government have bought contracts for foreseeable.
Your thoughts, Joe?
Well, I don't think they're UN soldiers, right? But they are soldiers. And what I think is that quite possibly, if law and order breaks down, they'll sort of deputize them to control us, like give them badges and say you're, you know, like Mickey Mouse police or whatever. That I could see that happening, you know, and there's definitely a reason for them coming here. What I think about this UN or NATO soldier theory is a lot of the COVID people who they feel uncomfortable talking about immigration, right? So if they say that these people are coming here as a NATO army to, you know, and that's the plan, then they can kick off about the hotels and immigration without being called racist, because they're saying, well, my concerns are not about race. They're about the fact that these are NATO or UN soldiers, and I think they're coming here to kill us all, like, you know? Yeah. But I do think that quite possibly we are going to have civil unrest. And I see somebody in the chat saying we wouldn't have civil unrest because the British people are pussies or something, right? The thing is, you wouldn't have any choice, because the police are useless now, right? Now, if law and order breaks down completely and people are just out looting the place and smashing everything up, then you wouldn't have a choice but to be involved, because you are involved. You wouldn't be able to run away from it, you know? Yeah. It's like, think about the riots in like 2011, right, in London, when that guy got shot by the police, and like the police just stood back and watched them wreck London and other cities, right? They couldn't deal with it, and that was small scale stuff, that was, you know? And if there was no, we run out of food, we can't pay our bills, you know, everybody's just out robbing and things like that. That is law and order breaking down, right? You know? Yeah. And then you've got amongst you've got probably a few 100,000 people from countries like Iraq and all these other places who hate us. Yes. They actually hate us. So, you know, I could see the government saying, oh, we need to restore order. We're going to give these people badges and weapons, and they're going to be a makeshift police force. I could see that happening. But even if that didn't happen, these people would be on the streets and they'd be running around just slaughtering people. and nobody would be, you know, the police wouldn't. The police can't deal with small scale looting riots. They definitely could not deal with massive public disorder, you know. And if people think that the police could protect you, they can't, you know. And I can't see any other reason for them being brought here. They're just literally being brought. You know, it's like where I live is I live in a small town, right? Not in between Cardiff and Swansea, and you very rarely see any foreigners or black people, right? And lately, everywhere you look is Africans, you know. And I travel around a lot with my job, and I'm telling you now that they're everywhere, you know. And we've had like the Pen Alley army camp that was full of them. We've got 5 hotels that we know about. There's probably more, you know. Like we only know about the 5. Every day, people are suggesting other hotels that are probably full of them, you know. We're just literally being flooded with immigrants. And then we've got the situation where we're being told that our bills are going to go through the roof. I mean, petrol's been costing us a fortune, and they're saying, you wait till this winter, there's going to be food shortages. You know, there's going to be, I just see really bad trouble coming. And I mean, it's going to be nothing to do with right-wing groups. You know, it's like people saying, oh, right-wing groups are going to do this and do that. We ain't going to do nothing, you know? We're just going to be swept up in it like the rest of the people. And I really think if some of these people here, I mean, what's stopping these Albanians bringing weapons in?
Yeah.
You know, you got videos of them doing shooting practice, and then the next minute they're on a boat to the UK. You know, if you know anyone tried to tell me they're not bringing guns and drugs with them, then you know what I mean. I'm just going to laugh in their face. Yeah,
Sure.
if these people get their hands on guns and that, we're in trouble. You know, and go on.
There was one report they caught a boat coming over from Dover, and they were armed. They had weapons
Well,
on them.
the thing is, see, if you can literally get a boat into a country and be undetected, like when Nigel Farage was down in, I think it was Hastings or somewhere, and he was talking to the fishermen, and they were saying people are rocking up, 30 of them on a boat, and they're just legging it up the beach.
Yeah.
You know, they could have machine guns on them, bags of drugs, everything. You know, the police are not interested in catching them. So, you know, what they probably do is get rid of the illegal shit they've been carrying and then go and hand themselves into the police station, because then they know that they'll be taken straight to a hotel.
Yeah.
You know? And like, how the fucking hell are we allowing people from Albania to come here anyway?
Yeah.
Because there's no war there. They've got no claim for asylum at all. They're just literally here to take the piss and be involved in crime. You know, it's just beyond. And like this new Home Secretary saying, oh, I'm going to send all the Albanians back. A great one. Yeah, have you heard that before? Like they were going to send everyone to Rwanda. It didn't happen. You know, they're literally just allowing it. And the only thing that shocks me is the fact that British people still believe that these people are going to do something about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they've only got to make they say, right, next week we're going to stop these immigrants coming over here, and everyone's going, oh yeah, they're going to stop them next week. And I'm like, are you fucking stupid or what? Are you really that dumb? Like, how many times have you heard that? You know, they've been saying it for years, and now it's coming to a head now.
Yeah.
You know, we're being flooded with them, and the fact that they're being put up in these hotels is just beyond. It's ridiculous. I mean, pretty soon they're going to run out of hotels.
It's a pressure cooker. It's about to explode.
Yeah, I know.
There's
you know, there's people saying things like, what we need to do is get rid of the Tories and then everything will be all right. Like, as you know, imagine being a grown adult and believing that things would be any different if we had Labour in government. You know, imagine being that stupid as well. Like, you know, this is a deliberate thing. It's like, this is nothing to do with incompetence. It's not that, oh, Priti Patel's just stupid and she doesn't know what she's doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They're doing what they're being told to do. They're just allowing this invasion. And I
Yeah.
saw something earlier where somebody said that the people traffickers over in France, they say there's no danger when you get on one of their boats because they tip off the English police when a boat is leaving. So
Yep.
they're basically saying, oh, no, guys, we got a boat on the way with like 20, 30 people on, and then they just say, no problem, we'll pick them up now, and they just may as well be sending a fucking taxi to get them,
Yeah.
you know, to send in the Royal Navy out, like, and I went for a walk down the beach earlier, and I see the Royal Navy there having a sale, selling all the like the kids' wellies and all that sort of thing. And I would have bought something off them before, and they can fuck off now. You know what I mean? Honestly, they've just become a taxi service for these people,
Yes.
and they're saying things like, "Well, we won't be told who we can and can't save on the oceans." You know, it's just like, no, you're just facilitating them. It's a taxi service. As you know, like, remember when they said we're going to employ the Royal Navy to stop them? They didn't stop them. They just started picking them up.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it blows my mind. Like that. I mean, a lot of people have woken up. Like all the people I meet through my work usually say, this is disgusting now, and they're people who would have never ever been interested before. But everyone can see it now.
Yes.
But there's still loads of people who read the newspapers and believe every word they see. Like I heard people talking about that Rwanda plan, like that was going to be the big solver of it all, and like they couldn't see that it was just another pile of crap. Like,
Yeah. It's all crap. There's, what do you call him? Stephen Wolf. At the start of the year, he was saying that it was costing £5 million a day to house them in hotels. He says that's not the additional money that they get. It's for spending money, not the clothes and the phones and everything else. And he says it's more than £10 million a day instead of $5 million.
Well, it's like the one of the hotels in Cardiff that's got the Ukrainians in, and some of them have got Rolex watches on, right? They've gone out and hired Mercedes cars.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not skint. They've got money. All their kids are riding around on those motorized scooters, and they're just they're getting 3 meals a day given to them in the hotels, and they've clearly got money. They're just basically tourists, because if you were from Ukraine and you want to come here, all you've got to do is, what they do is, I was told by this person who works in one of the hotels, is they get a sponsor. These lefties, they've got these pages where they'll sponsor a refugee. So I say, oh, you and your family can come and stay with me. So then they agree to stay with you. That gets them here, right? So they obviously fly here. Then when they get here, they immediately ring the Home Office. And they say, I don't want to stay with my sponsor. I don't like them. I don't like the look of them, or, they're freaking me out or something like that. And they get taken straight to a hotel. That's how they get here. They fool these lefties that they're going to stay with them. And then they may stay there one day, or they may not stay there at all. All they've got to say is, I don't feel comfortable with that person. I don't want to stay in that house. So then they're immediately in a hotel.
Yeah.
And what they've done down here with some of the hotels is, they put them in a hotel for like 5 days, and then they've shifted them to another one for 5 days. And they've done a bit of that where like we've seen that there's refugees in a hotel. And by the time we get there, because obviously we've got jobs and lives and families, so by the time we get there, they're gone.
Yeah.
And I think they're just shifting them from hotel to hotel to try and hide it from the public a bit.
Can you see the chat, Joe?
Yeah.
The Spanish chickens comment. Now, there's somebody made a video of that a couple of weeks back. They're actually going back to Ukraine on holidays to visit family.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not just them. It's the Africans and that are going back to, loads of them go back on holiday. There's like, they were saying a lot of the Somalians that live in Cardiff, they've come here saying they're in fear of their lives, and they're going back on holiday to Somalia.
Yeah.
You know, it's just they're just taking the absolute piss out of us. Because if you got caught doing that, that should immediately invalidate your claim.
Yes.
You know, it's like you claimed asylum. You said you were in fear of your life to go back to the country. You've just been for a 2-week holiday there. You can stay there. You know, they can control the borders. The 2 times that I've traveled to Ireland, I've been stopped by the security services and held there for hours and questioned. Right?
Yeah.
They know when, and that's not traveling with a passport. That's me traveling with just photo ID. Right?
Yes.
As soon as they scan my name, I come up as some sort of domestic extremist, like, you know? So
Yeah.
surely, if these people are claiming asylum and then they get a passport and fly back to where they come from, they would know, you know, because it's all computer run, and they could just say, you're not coming back. You
Yeah.
know, you've lied on your asylum application, stay there. But they won't, because obviously, you know, this is what should happen, but it's not going to. They're just
Yeah.
allowing them to take the piss out of us. And you've got all these lefties, and like they'll argue with you and just say, well, no, they're fleeing persecution. You know, all this, like, nobody puts themselves and their families into a boat and crosses the channel unless they're in fear of their lives. What, in fear of their lives in France, are they? You know, it's just like, they're just ridiculous. Their argument just doesn't hold any water. It's bullshit. But
Well,
like,
the
all
ones
our councils and all our institutions have become infested with people with those sort of mindsets, you know,
the one,
and they
the one,
don't even care that they're taking the piss. They just let them come here anyway, you know.
they didn't invade Northern Ireland with our African enrichment quota. They flooded us with Eastern Europeans, and a lot of them's Albanians. And
Yeah,
as you say, Albania hasn't been at war for 27 years or something.
yeah,
And next minute they're setting up a Turkish barber shop, and they're passing themselves off as Turkish. And they're
yeah,
standing outside the shop all day, just standing leering at wee girls coming out of school in their school uniforms and smoking fags. And they're opening them Euro car washes, you know.
yeah,
Um, and they're just fronts for criminal racketeering, you know.
yeah. Well, there are cash businesses and fronts for drug dealing,
Yeah,
because like in London, they're involved in gang wars with the black gangs now. And that's, you know, this is what's attracting them here, probably because they think they're going to take over the drug trade. And it's just like, there's literally no reason for them to come here, you know. But I mean, that's only a small part of it, because loads of them are not from Albania, you know. But the Albanians shouldn't be allowed here at all, you know.
no,
Why are people coming here from Pakistan? They're not running away from a war either, are they? You know,
no.
it's just absolute piss take.
But there was
And
that
like I
that
was
report.
seeing on, I see a clip from the like the government pages, and it says it's illegal, it's a criminal offence to try and enter this country without a passport. And then
Yes,
you see videos of them, and they're throwing their passports away because they're going to lie where they're coming from. And obviously, if they scan their passports, they'll probably find out that they've got criminal offences as well where they come from. You
yeah,
know, and so they're throwing it. So as soon as they land here without a passport, they should be nicked. You know, what I would do is nick them, keep them in the cells for 2 days, and then deport them.
yeah.
And then pretty soon the message would get through to the other side that you ain't getting here. You know,
Even
but
when they
it's
are,
like,
even when they are here, Joe, when they commit offences, they do their
yeah,
time and then let out. They should do their time and then deported. But then
yeah, well,
the crying, bleeding heart liberals say, "Ah, but their families here. Their families here. Ah, but
yeah,
you've gang raped fucking several hundred wee girls in Rochdale or whatever in England. Yet he gets to stay here. And what a lot of them do is they renounce their Pakistani citizenship when they're given English citizenship, British citizenship. So they can't be deported because technically, by the law, um, they're British. They're not
yeah.
Pakistanis. Um,
Well, like when they get sentenced for things, the judge says on, and when you're released, you're going to be deported, right? But
Mhm.
that's not worth the paper it's written on, right?
Yeah.
And I know a bit about it because I was locked up in Wandsworth prison one night, right?
Yeah.
And I was on a wing that was full of foreigners, right? And the immigration service were there. There's posters all over the prison saying, if you want to go home, they'll give you like 3 grand. They'll
Yes.
fly you home and they'll give you about 3 grand, right? And it was posters everywhere in all these different languages saying, if you want to go home, we'll assist you, right? Now,
Yeah.
this guy that I was in a cell with was like Indian. He'd been inside a few times. He'd overstayed a visa, and the immigration came up to the cell to see him, and they said, do you want to go home after your sentence? And he said, no, I don't. And they said, well, why not? And he said, I'm staying. And they said, okay, well, if you want to go back, we can help you. And he'd overstayed a visa, so they could have immediately deported him, right?
Yeah.
And all they did was say, well, here's my card. If you want to go back, we can, and we'll give you money and that sort of thing. And he was saying, fuck that, I'm not going back, right? And basically, every Thursday, they were taking about 30 people out of that prison and deporting them. They were mostly Eastern Europeans and Polish and that, right? But they only deport them if they're wanted for offences back home, right?
Yeah.
So if they're wanted for like a stabbing where they've come from, they'll deport them. But they don't deport them just because they're here and they're not supposed to be here and they're criminals.
I mean,
And another thing was,
before they come.
sorry?
They don't vet them before they come. If
No, I know, no.
If you have a criminal record, you can't get into Australia. You can't get into America if you have a criminal record.
No, that's right. Well, and he told me, this Indian, that all the other Indians and the other people in the prison, they were all going to each other's cells and they were coaching each other on how to claim asylum. And they basically said that all you really have to do is say that you're gay, right? And that your government is after you because they don't like gays, and then they will not send you back. And that's what they were basically coaching each other to say. Oh, I'm gay, my government's going to kill me for being gay, so I can't go back. That's literally how easy it is,
Oh, shit. You don't belong here.
I know. Well, yeah, I know. And the thing is, then them same people will end up going back for holidays, like we were talking about just now.
Mm-hmm.
And like, here's another thing. This girl, I think she was 14, got murdered in London. Her name was Alice Gross, right?
Yes.
Have you heard about this?
Yes.
The guy that killed her, I think he was Latvian or something.
Yeah.
And he raped her and murdered her, then he killed himself, right? Now, the police said he'd served a sentence back in his country for murdering his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he'd done a few years and he'd been released. Now, the Met Police said they had no idea that he'd done a murder before. But even if they had known that, it wouldn't have prevented him coming to the UK.
Yeah.
So, and like that other Eastern European who cut that little girl's throat up in Bolton,
Yes.
these people, should have been deported a few times, wasn't. These people are literally killing our children and nobody cares.
Yeah.
And like their solution is to just keep bringing more, not to think about even vetting through them to get, to chuck some of the worst ones out. They're not interested in chucking any of them out. They just want to bring more and more and more. And obviously there's a plan behind it. And like, if this is true that, we're going to run out of food and we can't afford to pay our bills and everything's going to turn into chaos, like people who live in these areas that are full of these foreigners and Albanians and Somalians and all the others are going to be in trouble, because I've been told by somebody from the hotels that the Holiday Inn in Bristol is full of Somalian men, and they're 2 men to a room, and the female staff, because a few of them have been sexually assaulted, they can't go to the toilet without security guards.
Yeah.
So they're on the reception desk. They've got to have security take them to the toilet in case they
Yeah,
get raped.
they just make excuses for them by saying, it's part of their culture.
It's not their fault.
It's not
It's
their
your
fault.
fault for wearing a skirt. Like, yeah, this is like, why do we want people like that in our country? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like, like I said earlier about you got the Dover where they're just escorting them in. You got other beaches where they're just rocking up and running away, and then you got all the ones that's in the back of lorries.
Yeah.
How easy is it to bring some guns and a bag of drugs with you?
Yeah.
No,
Matthew makes a good point there. Turkey is now releasing these supposed refugees and letting them into Europe. And
I see that. Yeah.
Next Sunday is an Italian election, and the ones that are running for leadership, what do they call it? The brothers of Italy. They seem to be way out in the lead. But as soon as if they get into power, their leader has said they will be putting gunboats in the sea to stop them, and they will probably fire on them.
Yeah, well, let's hope they do. Because that's like they're letting the criminals out of jail. This is what Somalia does. They're letting all their mentally ill people leave to come here because they can't wait to see the fucking back of them. And they know that they're going to end up killing people. They'd rather them kill our people than theirs. And like I read this thing that said Somalia, because it's not run by a proper government, it's basically run by warlords. They won't take any. If we tried to send anyone back there, they wouldn't accept them. So we're just stuck with them, And it's like they say in Cardiff. When you used to Google the Somalian population of Cardiff, it used to say the Somalian population of Cardiff is somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000. They haven't got a clue. They don't know, or they don't want us to know. But I'll tell you now that there's friggin' loads of them,
There's Joe over here. It's different. We didn't have the mass immigration that England and Wales and some places in Scotland had, but they done it by stealth. There's white Europeans that came here. Now some of them are hard-working people, they're dead on, but they shouldn't be here. There was one newspaper, I can't remember, what was it, Poland, that ran a 2-page spread on exactly what you could claim if you got to England.
Yeah.
A free house, money, you're set up for life. A mate of mine, he's actually caught 4 last year, where he works, over in Londonderry, and he's caught 4 of them, and then they've went into court for petty crimes, but he's always had the border force waiting for them to come out of the courtroom. Straight off in the plane. Where you go? Around. They don't need them here.
No, well, that's how it should be. Why should we have people coming here just to commit crimes? Remember all the years ago, there used to be loads of Romanians and that in London, all sleeping in the parks, all going out begging in the daytime, pickpocketing people, shoplifting everywhere. When they got arrested, they were being cautioned and just let go. If you got caught shoplifting, you'd be dealt with and you'd get a fine or community service or something. Every time they caught them, they were just feeling sorry for them and letting them go. And then they just do it again the same day.
That's a 2-tier policing system in England.
Yeah.
Our police are slightly different over here. Our boys are armed to the teeth, and they don't take that from anybody. And they're not wee fat dumpy women like they have in London. They're big, strapping 6 foot plus men.
Did you see the amount of women police officers trying to deal with that disorder in Leicester?
Yeah,
Right? If you watch the videos, like you've got a gang war going on, or a religious war, whatever you want to call it, in Leicester, that's been going on for ages now. And the mainstream media are not reporting it, or if they are reporting it, they're playing it down. And there's loads of videos around it, and there's like Hindus and Muslims battering each other, and you've
Yeah.
got all these police in the middle of it shitting themselves, and loads of the police are women.
hmm
And I, you know, like, oh, I'm gonna sound like a right sexist pig when I say this, but women are not as strong as men. You shouldn't be sending women in to fight men, especially men that are tooled up, you
yeah,
know? And like, there's loads of videos there with people waving knives around and pickaxe handles and all sorts. And you've got half the police there being women, because we all know that the police are actively recruiting anyone except white men. They're just trying to employ anyone who's ethnic in any way, shape, or form, and women, so that they can show how diverse they are. And then when them women get battered, then
yes.
you know it's like, honestly, it's beyond. And have you seen the videos of Leicester?
I was just seeing a bit of them. That was the Pakistani and Indians over a
Yeah,
cricket match
yeah.
or something.
I could see that's like spreading like wildfire, you know,
Yeah,
because they've been sending all Muslims up from Birmingham. They've been recruiting and that, like, you know,
yeah,
and basically send. That's what they used to do with us when it was the EDL days. They
yeah,
had this thing like the Muslim Defense League, and they used to send. They used to, you know, get all these Muslims from Birmingham and that. They'd travel around the country and try and attack people, but they only wanted to pick off stragglers.
yeah,
They weren't coming for a punch up. They're coming to attack little groups, like, you know.
yeah.
And that's what's happening up there. There's just massive mobs of them, and they're in their element when they catch one person on their own and give them a good hiding, like, you know. And
At
they're
that,
all waving bread knives around and that, you know.
at that time with Tommy Robinson, it was the police that escorted him up to the demonstration.
What
And
time was that?
he was holding a demonstration or a rally, Tommy Robinson, and the Muslim Defense League all came up. There was road masked up. There was a good few
Oh
of them.
yeah, I think it was in Manchester when he was. That was when he was standing for election, I think.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah. Oh, we've had times like there was a where was it? Tower Hamlets. There was a demonstration, and we went on a train, about 300 of us, and we got escorted up to where the demo was. 45 minutes walking through London under a massive attack from Muslims. They were up on the tops of tower blocks throwing things down onto us. There was just bricks and darts flying everywhere. And when we got to the demo area, there was about 500 of them waiting for us there. They said, "You can't have your demo, you're going back." And they marched us back for another 45 minutes under attack. That was beyond mental, that was. And you know what the police were doing? Is every time we came to a side street, hundreds of Muslims would come running out of it with bats and that. And the police were running down towards them, and you could see the police reasoning with them, saying, "Come on, boys, it's not worth it," and all that. And us, if any of us tried to break out of the escort to try and fight back, we were getting battered. You know, it was like we were the bad guys, like, and all we were doing was marching and trying to do a peaceful demonstration, a legal demonstration, and we got treated like we were the bad guys, and we were under attack from thousands of Muslims.
Yeah,
You know, and that's like that was the story. And the thing is like, if you did get into a fight with them, every single time they'd arrest you, and all the whites would get chaz, and all the Muslims would get let go.
yeah,
You know, that's why these days I avoid them kind of demos, because it's just not worth it. Like,
No.
you know, you don't prove anything. They end up being like, you've made them the victims.
yeah,
Because you went to their area to terrorize them, when the reality is there's 2,000 of them on the streets, tooled up, waiting to hopefully going to kill some of you. But
Yes.
but according to the newspapers, they're the victims. They're all in their houses hiding behind the settee. That's why those kind of demonstrations are not worth doing.
Yeah. I just state the facts and keep it simple. We were never
Oh,
asked. We don't want these people here.
oh, and that's right. Yeah, no one's ever asked us. Well, they never would. It's like the Brexit thing.
Yeah.
They gave us a vote. They didn't expect the vote to go the way that it did go. I think they shit themselves when it went that way.
Yeah.
That's why they would never give us a vote on immigration unless they could rig it.
Well, 42, if you ever watch 42's channel, he makes a good point on voting on immigration. We all get a census out every 5 years. Most people just bin it and throw it in, recycle it,
Yeah.
and they never fill it in.
Yeah.
And it is about immigration, to reduce immigration, to stop immigration. There's then parties that they call them a right-wing fascist party in Sweden, I think it was, that won the election.
Yeah.
But they mandated the fucking jab.
Yeah. Well, somebody said that they've got no real power anyway, so they're not going to be able to do anything.
No.
But they're the rape capital of Europe, Sweden.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of the rapists are not Swedish.
Yeah.
So you would think that somebody would want to stop it, but they don't. They instead, we're the bad guys.
There's an activist,
Always.
activist group in Ireland. I can't mind their name, but he did a video on it, and he went to the airport and greeted these Ukrainian refugees, and they were all 40s, one was sort of late 30s, and they all claimed to be 60 years old and Ukrainian, and they were brown.
Yeah.
They were Pakistanis.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is a lot of them have come from Ukraine. It's they're saying they're Ukrainian. They're not.
Yeah.
Every country they're in, they'll run away. They wouldn't fight for any of these countries. They wouldn't fight for us.
No.
All these people who've come here as immigrants, if we had a war now, they'd say, I'm not fighting. I'm not British. They're only British when it suits them.
Yes. Here we have, Joe, we literally have YouTube royalty, and we have got the Woodlander, we have got Reverend Simon Sideways, we have Yes the Eunuch, Chief Moody.
Yeah.
Now,
we're honoured.
I know your demonstration is in October, isn't it?
Well, it's not our demo. It's local people that are doing it, but we're going to support them. Some Banners on Bridges group, which is like COVID people, they're supporting it. And some of the CivNat groups down here will be supporting it as well. But this is going to be like the new Penally, because Penally was the ex-army camp down in Tenby where they landed like 200 of them. And that was a town of 900 people. And they landed 200 immigrants there, right? And I've said this before, we were going down there to demonstrate, and there was about 200 locals out on the streets, and they really didn't want them there. And that's a holiday resort, and it's like a really beautiful town, Tenby is. It's really old fashioned. It's like this country used to be years ago. Yeah. And basically, when there was not many of them there, they were coming up to the fence and saying, oh, we don't want no trouble, we come in peace and this and that. When there was 200 of them there, they were like stood by the fence doing that cutthroating thing and saying, fuck you, and all that sort of thing. And then they wouldn't let them out because the local people didn't want them there. So they were basically grounded in the camp. There was lefties turning up every day, making food for them, giving them footballs, and all this sort of thing. You know, just right, absolute muppets, like, right? And
Did you
then,
ever notice the colour of the lefty morons? They're all white.
so, yeah, oh yeah, of course they are.
But
And they
there's
all live. A lot of the lefties that were going down there lived like out in the sticks, right? This wasn't going to affect them at all, you know. But that holiday resort would have been absolutely ruined, right? But anyway, in the camp they had a few incidents where one of them stabbed another one of them set fire to his bed, all this sort of bullshit, right? And then eventually they let them out into the town, and they were roaming around the town in big gangs, and within days they were caught grooming like 14-year-old girls and that, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a big fuss about it, and then they moved them all out into social housing, and we got no social housing in Wales, right? Literally, there's like the Vale of Glamorgan is one borough that where I used to come from. They've got over 4,000 people waiting for council properties, and they've promised to take thousands of refugees, where they've got nowhere to put them.
and that
You
was
know?
the one. Rory Herbert gets it. Was Linton on Hughes with the ex-military base
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
They wanted to
But like,
put
this is the thing: is eventually they moved them out of that army camp, and do you know what the reason was? Because it was unfit for human habitation, right? So they've rehoused them, 200 men now in all around Wales. And do you know who's in that army camp now? The army are back in there.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah.
If Reverend Simon can put in the details of their march in London in the chat, I'll pin it up here. I think
that's the one on the 24th, isn't it?
Is it 24th at 12 o'clock?
24th. Yeah, that's next Saturday, that one.
Part of Parliament Square or something.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
If he wants to stick the details in there, I can stick it up on the screen so anybody wants to come to it can.
I can't go to that one. I'm concentrating on stuff down here because we've got basically, like we got in PA, we've got like two groups. We've got one in North Wales, one in South Wales. Most of the carnage is going on in South Wales.
Yeah,
because
but you're doing work with that drag queen story or in libraries and stuff.
Yeah, we had that as well. Yeah, that's all. That's finished for now, but he's not gone away, you know. And we've just got refugee problem everywhere. We've got like Cardiff and Swansea are the main cities. Both of them are just chock-a-block with immigrants. Cardiff is a hellhole, you know, and a lot of like the white people that live there are just druggies. It's an awful place, you know. But they've had like blacks and Somalians and all that there since like 1919 when there was riots and that when they first came. And there's whole areas that are chock-a-block with them, and a lot of the white people just don't care. You know, they're just used to it now. But like, I had to go and do a repair on there's this called Butte Town, is the docks area of Cardiff. They used to call it Tiger Bay years ago, full of Somalians. Now I had to go down there because somebody had torched the flat. Cardiff, they used to call it Tiger Bay years ago.
Yeah,
full of Somalians. Now I had to go down. I'm echoing. Somebody had torched the flat. Cardiff, they used to call it Tiger Bay years ago.
Yeah,
full of Somalians.
Yeah. They brought in them refugees from Ukraine and put them up in some place in Belfast, and it turns out they were running prostitution rings.
Yeah.
You know, like prostitution. And one of the girls that they were prostituting was 14 years old. 14.
Yeah. I was just saying then, and I got, it was echoing now. Does that sound all right now?
Yeah, it was.
Well, the point I was going to make is I had to go down there and look at this flat because somebody had torched it, right?
Yes.
And we had to be let into this gated complex by the security guard, and there was police all running around in there. Now, one flat had been torched. Someone else had been stabbed in another flat. And the security guy said, "Oh, it's terrible down here. There's about 6 stabbings every week." And I said, "Who's doing that?" And he said, "The Somalis all stabbing each other over drugs." But like, you would never read that in the newspapers down here or see it on the news.
No.
They'll never discuss it. And there was a case where a Somali was killed by another Somali with an axe. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was a school bus full of kids parked up on like at the lights when it happened. So they all witnessed it, right? And it was all over the South Wales Echo, and it was this big manhunt for this guy and all that. And I was following the story, and all of a sudden it just died, and you never heard anything about it again. And the story disappeared from like the online version of the paper as well. So somebody must have said, "Get that down. It's making the Somalians look bad."
Yeah.
So they just removed it. They took it out of the paper. I've never found out if they've caught that guy or not, you know? And, you know, this is what they do. Like, they just, you know, I'm not saying all of them are the same, right? But like, you know, if they have a dispute, they settle that with knives, you know? And that's how they do it back where they come from. And that's how they do it here. And like the response from the people who are here to supposedly uphold the law is to hide it and try and cover it up. You know? It's just beyond, like, and it just can't go on, you know?
Well, look at last year, and it was the veterans that went down to secure the cenotaphs and all because they were being defaced. And the police were in white shirts, short sleeve shirts and all, policing the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And as soon as they went to go and police the boys that were actually standing protecting the statues and memorials and stuff, they were in the full riot gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it always was in the EDL days.
Yeah.
It would be, we would get rushed by riot police, and the Muslim gangs with all their bats and pickaxe handles would be treated with kid gloves.
Yeah.
You know? And that's how it is. I remember that day when they cut some people off so they were behind enemy lines and they got battered. And there was a few videos, one there, of single, like, white football lads just having the absolute shit kicked out of them. Yeah. And the police had deliberately cut them off so they were stranded behind enemy lines, like, you know? And, like, if you get a kick in there and come out of it without dying, then you're winning, you know? Because they will literally murder you, those people. Yeah. There's that one guy, he was getting battered by about 30 of them, wasn't he, on the floor? Remember that?
Yeah.
And the newspapers were basically laughing at the guy, you know, saying, "Ha, the fascist got a kick in," like, you know? It's like what they were going there to try and stop our statues from being destroyed because the police have stand there and watch them do it. And like that black person that climbed up on the cenotaph and set the flag on fire didn't go to jail either, did they?
No.
You know, if you did that outside a mosque, you'd get probably 3 years for doing that.
Yeah.
You know, this is the 2-tier system that we've got, like.
Yes. Oh, I know exactly what you're saying, but
yeah, they get away with murder. I mean, like, I've seen people like get 12 months for going into a kebab shop and giving them a bit of abuse, and then you had those Muslims who set fire to a poppy on Remembrance Day, which basically insulted everybody in the country, and they got fined 50 quid.
Yeah.
You know, 50 quid. Like, I mean, you get more of a fine for not wearing your seatbelt.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, and they came out of the court and said, "We'll pay you back with your own money because we're on benefits."
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, how hard would it be to just grab hold of them and just chuck them on a boat and say, "Bye-bye, you're going home." You know, you're just no use to this country whatsoever. They just actually come here to fucking parasite off us. and that's
Yeah.
if they're not trying to murder us, you know.
Well, as the angry bit Nick calls them, he says the followers of Alan's snack bar, 80-something% of the males don't work,
Yeah,
and over 90% of the females don't work, and there's a mass percentage of them that weren't born here, so they're not entitled to anything, but yet they still get, and you and me and everybody else has to foot the bill for it.
yeah. Well, this Butte town that I was talking about, Cardiff Docks, right?
Yes.
Like there's this square called Loudon Square, and if you drive past in the morning, there's nobody there, right? They don't
Yeah.
get up till about midday, right? And then they stand around in a big gang, 30, 40 of them, and they're dealing heroin and crack, right?
Yeah.
And around that square is packed 15, 20 taxis, right? Now, I've
Yeah.
worked down there and I've worked inside properties, and those taxis never move. Very rarely do they ever move anywhere, right? They're just parked up all the time. And like we were talking about earlier, I think they've only got the taxis so they can launder the drug money.
Yes.
And
But
that's the only...
that's what they're doing over here. This is
Yeah.
why they have Turkish barber shops and they have the Euro car washes and stuff. Just
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Just so they can declare a couple of £100 a week as legitimate earnings, while the rest of it is just, you know, and like they got these text messages that go out and, you know, it says, oh, 2 rocks for 25 quid and all this sort of thing. And then when people text the number back, you know, people get the number. Some of these cokeheads will get, every now and again, they'll get a message about heroin and crack and that. But when they text back and say, where do I have to go? It's always loud and square, right?
Yes.
So it's most of the smackheads are white, but the people selling it are Somalis, you know? And like the smackheads from the town that I used to live in, Barry, like my mate was a taxi driver and he used to take the smackheads down there. And they used to say, wait for me with the, you know, with the meter running. He used to know them. He'd take them there. He'd wait round the corner for them with the meter running. They'd come back and then he'd take them back to Barry. So they were getting their supplies,
Yeah.
you know? So it's them selling to our people. I bet they don't take the shit themselves, you know? They're just selling it to our people.
But our prisons, the British prisons, England especially, there are 3,500, I think it was the last count, 3,500 Eastern Europeans.
Yeah.
And it costs the taxpayer about £100,000 per prisoner to keep them there for a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're footing the bill for that instead of
Yeah.
deporting them back to their own country.
Yeah. Well, I was in Wandsworth prison in 2015, right, for 3 months because I threw a lefty down the stairs, right? But because it happened in London, I was jailed in London. And the only white people that I met in there that were white British people was a couple of the old blokes who did that Hatton Garden robbery, right?
Yeah.
Apart from them, now you would imagine that Wandsworth prison would be full of Cockney white boys, like, you know, and, you know, London gangsters. There's nobody like that in there. The main wing is just full of blacks and Asians, right? And they're all gang members and they're just fighting all the time. And then when you get taken over onto that's the induction wing, then you get taken over to one of the main wings. And it's just like I was on a wing full of foreigners. There was nobody else British there, right? And I used to look out my window and I could see, I never used to go for exercise or anything because it's just too dangerous, like. And I used to watch the exercise yard and all the different wings would be let out at different times. And it's just all blacks and foreigners, you know? Literally that prison, I can't remember what there used to be all these information boards on the wall. It was something like, this prison was meant to hold 1,400 prisoners. At the moment, it's got over 2,000. But literally, I'd say 95% of them are foreigners. You know,
Yeah.
That must be costing this country an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
There was loads of Albanians in there as well. You know.
Yeah. Well, sure, we're sending, what was it? We sent 100,000, no, 100 million, was it? To Ukraine for a war that's nothing to do with us.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Well, they're mad to they're mad for us to get involved in that war. You know, they're saying that this new guy that's in charge of the British Army has said that, you know, the British people must realise that they may need to send their children and grandchildren to war with Russia. No, well, you can fuck off because we're not. You know, like when I left school, I was obsessed with going in the army, and they wouldn't let me when I left school because I was colourblind, right?
Yeah.
And then I was, you know, I would have done anything to fight for my country. But like the way I look at it now, I would never do that. I'm too old now. Like, but like I would have probably given my life for this country when I was young. But I see things a whole different way now. It's like they're just sending our people to war as cannon fodder.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you have the angry bit Nick there that done 6 or 7 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan.
yeah.
We're chatting one day, and he says, you know, you think about it, and you look at the political situation at the minute, and it's like, what the fuck did I go for?
Yeah.
You know, why
Well,
the
look what
hell?
happened in Afghanistan. Is they just, after all the people who lost their lives there, they just basically left there and just up sticks and said, right, we're off. And then it's just nothing has changed. The only thing that's different is now we're expected to take hundreds of thousands more people from that country.
Yeah.
You know, and they literally brought thousands of them back with them. And they left all their military equipment there for them to use. Because they said it was too expensive to bring it back. So they've left all sorts of fucking cool shit for them to use, like, you know?
Yeah.
So they're probably better armed than they were before it all started. And now we've got potentially thousands and thousands of them living amongst us who may decide one day to strap a bomb to themselves.
No, as you said earlier in the chat, they hate us. They're not here to integrate. They're here to take over.
They're here to. It's human nature to take the piss, right? If they know that they can come here and get loads of money and be housed up in hotels, they're going to do it. You can't really blame them for that. We need to blame the people who are facilitating it and allowing it and encouraging it.
The government.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we should be blaming. Not, you know, not if people can take the piss, they're going to take the piss, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where you got Ukrainians coming here wearing Rolex watches and hiring, when they get here, they're hiring Mercedes cars to swan around in, but they're allowing the government to keep them in a hotel. It's just like a fucking holiday.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all inclusive, isn't it?
Yeah. But
you know?
Boris Johnson he was not even British. He was born in New York.
Yeah.
His greatest hero, according to him, was Winston Churchill. And he was going, this is my firm belief, that he was going to use Ukraine as his Churchill moment, you know?
Yeah.
And then
I think they'd like nothing better than to launch us into a full-blown European war where millions and millions of white people will slaughter each other. And then our replacements are already here.
Yeah.
Ready to take on where we left off when we've all been killed, you know?
Look, Dangerfield done an interesting video on it one night, Joe, and he was saying that the populations of the world, the white population of this planet, is 7.8% of the entire planet. So who's the actual minority here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can't afford another European war.
No.
It's you know, we literally can't. We'll be finished if that happens.
But they've priced people out of housing. They've priced people out of jobs.
Yeah.
cheap Eastern European workers coming in.
Yeah. Well, that's what
if
I
you-
mean. They're our replacements.
If you have 4 Polish boys renting a house, who are all engineers, and they're going out to work in the morning, and they're undercutting the local engineers here, because that engineer that's born here and has worked here all his days has a wife, he has kids, he has a mortgage, he has his bills to pay. You know, them 4 guys don't. They just have to pay their rent and feed themselves.
Yeah.
You know, so that poor sod gets jumped out of his job. It's happened in several businesses around here.
Oh yeah.
These are all supposed to be, you know, big community Christian business owners that have literally replaced their native workforce with Eastern Europeans.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I used to, years ago, I was self-employed. I had a van, and I spent like 2 years delivering stuff for Yodel, right?
Yes.
And I used to get £1 a parcel and £1 for every return I did. And
Yes.
I used to make good money doing it. And
Yeah.
I did it in a town where I knew it like the back of my hand. And I was just delivering things like DVDs and books and things like that you could letterbox, you know. And after the 2 years, they said, "Oh, you know, it's all changing now, and our prices are changing." And they put it down from £1 a parcel to 50p a parcel.
Right.
And it was because the Polish were you know, you see them driving around in cars. They haven't even got a van; they got a car, and it's chock-a-block with parcels. They
Yes.
were doing it, and they were willing to do it for 50p a parcel. So that put us out of business, like, you know, because I wasn't prepared to work for half the money. But up until then, it was a good number, you know. So I went back to the buildings, but like I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm set up here, like this is easy money, you know. And
Yeah.
then you got them, so they're basically getting, you know, twice as much for their money from those people.
Yeah.
And you know, so like building, you know, they'll work for cash in the hand, they'll work for less than minimum wage. I've worked on building sites. I was working on student accommodation in Swansea, and when it got to the stage where they brought in all the furniture, the beds, the chairs, the desks, and all that, there was like about 50 of them, all like, I don't know where they were from, but they had like sort of Spanish accents, and none of them could speak English, and they were just bringing the furniture in.
Yeah.
And they, like somebody said, oh, they're probably on a £5 an hour,
Yeah.
you know?
Here,
And that was like,
Joe, my eldest boy got a job just before Christmas with a packaging company a couple of years back in Belfast, and they were offering him £4.50 an hour.
yeah,
He lived with his mother and stuff, and he needed a job. It's better to get into another job if you have a job already.
yeah.
But he says there was Eastern Europeans and a Pakistani guy working in the same building, and the Pakistani guy was on £1.50 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's what I mean. You can't compete with that, like, you know.
How can you live on £1.50 an hour for a start?
Well, you can live on £1.50 an hour if you're getting benefits as well, can you?
Yeah. True.
Which is probably what they're doing, and they're getting their housing benefit paid. Because I read the other day that, not in a paper or anywhere, it was on one of the groups that I'm in, that, you know, there's a cap on housing benefit.
Yes.
They stopped it. I think in this country it was something like £400 or something like that. That was the most they would pay, unless you probably get more if you got children. But if say you're a single man,
Yeah.
they'll give you, if your rent's £600 a month, they'll only give you 400. But these people were saying that the cap doesn't apply to these people.
Yeah.
So when they get housed by the local authorities, they're getting all their rent paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was me, I wouldn't, you know?
We had 2 Eastern Europeans here, and the wife didn't work, but the husband did. And they were given a council house Um, and then he lost the job because he couldn't do the job. He was shit, you know.
Yeah.
So they turfed him out. And then he went into the Citizens Advice Bureau and said him and the wife were breaking up. And he needed a flat. So I'm on the list for what we call a pensioners bungalow. It's got wider doors for wheelchair access and stuff like that there, and a wet room instead of a bath. And they got him a flat, ground floor flat, no problem. A couple of months later, they discovered that the wife had moved in with him in the flat, and they were renting out the council house to another Polish family.
Yeah.
The two of them eventually got deported.
Well, that's what the crack is with that Grenville Tower. They don't know who died in there because so many of them were subletting their flats and that. You know, it's just like massive amounts of corruption going on. Like, and the fact is that most of these lefty idiots that work in these councils, even if they uncovered some of this fraud, they wouldn't say anything.
Yeah,
they just turn a blind eye to it. Like, you know. It's like a clown world. Literally now, we're living in clown world, because all the people that have got themselves into positions of authority, they're all mentally ill.
Yeah.
You know, they literally, us, the indigenous people of these islands, we're lower than the shit on their shoes.
Yeah.
You know. They wouldn't give us anything if they could. If they could get away with giving us absolutely nothing, that's what we'd be getting, you know? And these people will get it all. Like I said about the Vale of Glamorgan, 4,000 people on the housing list. And, they're saying we'll take hundreds, potentially thousands of refugees. Well, that means that those 4,000 people have just gone right to the back of the queue.
Yeah.
Because you ain't going to put these newly arrived vulnerable refugees at the back of a 4,000, people list, do you? They're going straight to the front of it.
Well, I've been 14th on their list for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
Yet my daughter's mother lives in a wee village just outside the town, and there's pensioners' bungalows all around her. And I was around visiting one day, and she goes, "That one there's empty. That one there's empty. That one there up the road's empty. That guy had to go into care because he had spina bifida. That one's empty. Yet I can't get one.
Yeah,
because they're holding off to other people.
Well, that's it. Well, there's a seaside town down here called Porthcawl, and the people have just found out that there's 900 flats going up, which nobody was told about.
Yeah.
There's 900 new flats going up, and I wonder who's going to get those.
Yeah.
Because not so far away is 5 hotels full of refugees, or so-called refugees.
There's Ian Marr in the chat. Now, Ian was born in the house that he lives in. His father passed away there, I think last year. And that's the house that he was born in. And he's been there all his life. I know he worked abroad for a while, different things. But you don't get that nowadays.
No.
People on average now move in their lifetimes 8 different times.
Yeah.
I know some of the family members that live across in England, they have moved 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Because you went into this wee sleepy village with a pub and a church and a wee shop, and everybody was homogeneously white, and next minute they're brown.
Yeah.
So they move. Yeah.
Well, this is what I said. Like down here in tiny villages, like I drive around a lot with my job, and I'm going through little villages in Wales, and I'm seeing Africans mooching about. Like I was up in there's a place called Tree Forest, which is near Pontypridd. It's like a university town.
Yes.
And I had to go and do a quick job there. And while I was in there, I was looking out the window. An African woman walked past with 6 kids trailing behind her. And then as I drove through the town, I just thought, Jesus Christ, man, there's no white people here at all.
Yeah.
You know, and then they're not students because they're families, you know, and it's not families that are coming into this country on boats. It's all men.
Yeah.
So how are all these African families getting here? They're getting here because they're being flown over, because they're being given visas, you know?
Oh, I totally agree.
And there's just like little towns in the valleys that are just filling up with black people, like,
yeah,
you know? And obviously, if you live in that town and you're putting your name on for social housing, you ain't getting one.
Yeah. But what do they call them, Joe? Is it seed babies? They have a baby. They come across from Somalia and have a baby here, and that baby automatically gets British citizenship. It's not. It's still a Somalian. You know.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
I put this in chats all the time. If my mother and father, Northern Irish folk, went to work in Japan, and I was conceived and born in Japan, does that make me Japanese?
No, well, of course not.
Yeah.
Well, we always say, like, Cliff Richard was born in India. He's not Indian, is he? You know, it's as simple as that. Like, if you're born in China, you're not Chinese. But somehow, these people that are born in our country are British.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, there's, you know, and there's no telling these people. It's like that guy that had the debate with Laura Towler, trying to say that African kids that were born here and lived their whole lives are British. And he said, remember that idiot? He was, the British people will never be a minority because everyone is British. So we'll never be a minority. That's what he was trying to say.
But that dopey git that was Ricky Doolan, chief
That's him, grifter, wasn't he? Grifter extraordinaire. And his missus is African as well, like,
he's not even British. He was born in Ireland. He has Irish citizenship.
Is he?
Yeah.
He just thought he could come over here and get a load of money out of Patriots by waving a Union Jack. That's what he thought.
Yeah.
And I think Laura ripped the rug out from underneath him, like, you know. That was pretty epic, that was.
Yeah.
But like that was his whole argument, that everyone that lives here is British, so we can never be a minority. You know, absolute muppet. And like the thing is, you know, this prediction that we're going to be a minority by the 2060s, that's way off now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot quicker than that. You know?
Steve Schultz is in the chat there, 2066.
Yeah.
2040s, but more like the 2040s.
Yeah.
If you look at the school demographics now in England, and pictures of the kids, and you have 2 wee white kids standing in a class of about 40. You know, and are them white kids even British? No, they could be European. They could be, you know, the education system's a breaking point.
The thing is like, did you see what they were doing in Hungary with all the incentives for people to have kids and that?
Yes.
There was a big long list of tax breaks and like
your first kid, you paid 1/3 less income tax. Your second kid, you paid 2/3 less income tax. Your third kid, you didn't pay income tax at all.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like, that's what they say, we're an aging population and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Is easily rectified by getting rid of all the immigrants and all the people who should have never been allowed to come here in the first place, and then giving everyone incentives to have bigger families like they used to, you know?
There's the Republic of Ireland. On average, 30, 40 years ago, they maybe had 10 plus children per family.
Yeah.
Now their demographics is the native Irish people are less than 75% of their own population. In the
Yeah.
last 20 years, it's been accelerated. It's worse than England. And their birth rate is 1.1
Yeah.
child per family. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I was one of 5 kids, like, you know, and when I was born, everybody had loads of kids, but these days people can't afford it because
No.
of the way, the way that the economic system is people just can't afford to have loads of kids. But
Yeah.
it could easily be rectified if you had a government that actually cared about its people.
Yeah.
And we got rid of all these freeloaders and all the people who should never be here, you know, and just start putting our people first and giving
Yeah.
people incentives to have more children, make it
Right.
worth their while.
We're 20, with 3 minutes to go. Do you want to advertise anything that you're doing, Joe, or do you want to?
Well, yeah, just that there's this demonstration. Like I said, it's not a PA demonstration. It's local people organising it. There's various groups involved, but we're supporting it. And it's October the 15th. It's 1 p.m. and it's at Junction 32 on the M4 Cardiff. It's called Tong Gwynlais. And if people want to get down there, they can. Like, you know, I expect the police will be all over it. And but like the thing is a lot of the local people are angry in this place. A lot of the hotels that I talked about, they haven't got like local population. They're just the sort of out on their own. This
Yeah.
one is in a community of 1,900 people, and like I said, local people have lost their jobs in the hotel. The kids are not allowed to use the hotel for swimming anymore, and these people are just roaming all around the town. And like I said, when we walked around yesterday, they were driving around in cars, and like they look like gangsters.
Yeah.
I think they've employed them as makeshift security, you know? And they were driving around, staring at us and everything. And I thought, there's only like 5 of us here. And I thought, there's a real chance here that we could get attacked, like,
If
you
you
know?
give me a wee second, I'll play your video again.
Yeah. All right,
So everybody knows that.
This is the Holiday Inn at Tong Gwynlais in Cardiff. Now, the place is full of asylum seekers. Well, I say asylum seekers, they're not. Most of them are from Pakistan and Albania. There are no wars in those countries. These people are not refugees, they're tourists. Now, a demonstration has been called on October the 15th by various groups. It's not a PA event, but we'll be supporting it. So, October the 15th, 1 p.m, Holiday Inn, Junction 32 on the M4, Tong Gwynlais.
Okay, folks.
Yeah, cheers for doing that.
No, not a problem, Joe. I'd like to thank Joe for coming on as my guest. Really, really interesting fella, doing a lot of good work across the water. I'm going to play us out with our usual tune, and I will see you next week. Don't know who I have next week.
Can I just say that, sorry to interrupt you there, I'm on a stream with Steve Laws in 15 minutes.
Yes.
If anybody wants to tune in there, and I'll be on there now, like, you know. Cheers for having me on anyway, Ragz.
Not a problem. Anytime, Joe. I'll have to get you back on after the demonstration.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
See how it went. Okay, folks, good night, and God bless, or Odin bless.